On the Newman Jets Audio Network, this is the Jetcast, the official podcast of Newman University Athletics, featuring exclusive interviews with coaches, players, administrators, and more. The Jetcast podcast is brought to you by Ascension Via Christi, Donlinger Construction, Pizza Ranch, Mel Hambledon Ford, Eck Agency, Dr. Brennan Lucas and Advanced Orthopedic Associates, Keystone Solid Surfaces, Big Corner Creative, and by Pepsi. Here's the voice of the Newman Jets, Blake Cripps.
Newman Cross Country is back after a successful run this weekend at the Southern Stampede, and so we had to get in the golf cart, but we were able to catch up with Newman Cross Country. The head coach, Josh Schepis, joins us as our lead guest on episode 72 of the Jetcast. Coach, thanks for the time. Appreciate it very much.
Yeah, great to be here again.
Well, thank you for stopping by. Early season runs, you guys have had a couple. It's such a short cross-country season. I mean, it seems like you guys, you're starting in August, and by November, the season is over. How important are these early season runs, and what do you want your team to accomplish to make sure that you're ready for the MIAA championships here in a few weeks?
Yeah, most years these seasons are pretty quick. Like you said, conference championships the end of October. This year is what they call a festival year, and so every 5 years the NCAA Division II has all their championships in one place on one weekend for soccer and volleyball and cross country. So this is the one exception to that. This year we're going clear through November 17th or 18th. So, but I enjoy that. I would rather have our kids come in and be able to space our meets out, because we've been able to do it so that we had 3 weeks of training before our first meet, and then a meet, and then a week off, and then a meet, and then a week off, and then a meet. So we're able to get some good work in between. So, the early meets are important for our freshmen, as we have 13 freshmen this year, or 13 newcomers. So it's good that they can have opportunities to run the new distance for the men. And more than anything, it's important because the weather has just been crazy. We've had to get up at 5:45 to do any type of runs to get anything out of them. And so having some little bit of extra time, not having to put in 65 miles in a week when it's 100 degrees is good. We can kind of ease into that, and hopefully the weather will give us a break next week. But they've been getting up and being at practice at 6:20, and we stand there when we're running on the grass and wait for the sun to pop up so that we can actually see where we're going.
That's right.
Don't have any sprained ankles, and then as soon as the sun comes up at 6:40 or 6:42 or whenever it is, we're off.
Coming up on the show, we'll talk to one of those freshmen on the women's team, Britton Kelly, a senior from right here in Wichita, and then we'll be joined by Maria Stevens, a senior on the women's soccer team, coming up here on the show today. So I was going to ask you about the pressure of having such a short season. As a coach, how do you adjust? Because obviously you're used to the shorter kind of condensed season. When you are able to spread it out a little bit more, how does it change how you will work in the training sessions that you can do versus just having to have them kind of game ready every week?
Well, the biggest thing is just going to be what they did in the off season. What they do. When I first started coaching, I used to make T-shirts that say June and July equals success in November, because if they're not doing anything when they show up August 5th, we're in deep trouble.
Sure.
And they're spread out. They're in Dodge City. They're in Kansas City. They're in all different, and they can't come together and run. So it's pretty much on their own. So they have workouts and stuff that they do, but if they come in with their mileage that they need, and they're ready to start mixing in some interval training along with their core training, it makes so much of a difference, and it really makes their whole season. If they've got their 40 miles a weekend, 29 to 40 for the ladies, and 50 to 65 for the men, by the time they come and they've done that for 5 or 6 weeks in a row, their season is going to be completely different than if they were, just running 10 or 12 miles a week for the weeks leading up to practice. So,
last week for you guys were both in action, men and women, at the Missouri Southern Stampede. How do you think that went for the Jets?
A lot of positives. You always look for positive and negatives. There wasn't a lot of negatives. There were some people that, knew that they could have done a little better. But we always love going to Missouri Southern because they host the national championship. So that's a national championship course. They host it every 2 or 3 years. They're always hosting our regional championships. The facility and the way that they run the meet is just top notch. It's definitely a championship caliber course. And we played up that way. We got to see, I think, 6 of the top 10s in the region for the men and 4 for the ladies. So we got to see almost all the teams in our conference. So it was a very good tune-up, and it was the first time the men got to run 8K this year.
Okay.
So the freshmen, it was their first look at that on a really fast, good course. So a lot of positives and a lot of room to grow as well for some.
You had mentioned the men getting used to a new distance, running 8Ks this year. What was the old distance, and what has been the adjustment for you as a coach, and what do you think the players are going through, your runners, as they are trying to adjust to this new distance?
Yeah, the returners ran 8K last year and the year before, but I'm primarily looking at, we have a roster of, I think, 6 new men. So for those new men, it was quite the experience. They were coming from 5K to 8K. So the biggest difference is, we got to up their mileage. We got to up their intensity during their interval sessions. And you get to the 5.5K mark, those guys are looking for the finish line. And they got to know that there's a few more corners that they got to go around before they get to. So a lot goes into, preparation in your mind. Okay, when you get to that 16-minute mark, when your body's used to looking for the finish line, you have to, be prepared to stay focused, have a goal for your 4th mile time, and then the rest will take over when you get inside of the mile. But one of my freshmen told me, I got there and I was looking for the finish line. I was looking to see which corner it was going to be around, and it kept. Sure. I could hear it, but I couldn't see it.
No, I'd have been looking for it after about the first K, probably after about a half K. One lady who has found the finish line pretty quickly for you has been Britton Kelly. She'll be joining us on the show coming up here. Already has set a record for the program, a 3-mile record for you that she set earlier this month in the first meet of September. What excites you the most about having this native Wichitan on your team?
Well, Britton, she's the niece of our assistant coach, and Dina Kelly. I've been watching Britton run since she was, younger. She was on my daughter and her went to the same high school, so I've been aware of her for quite a while, and she just brings so much enthusiasm and positive atmosphere and positive spirit. I love all of our freshman girls that have come in, and Patricia, our transfer. So this year's women's team is just really fun to be around. They're positive with each other. There's no, they're not competing for playing time, so they're all just pulling for each other.
Sure.
And the atmosphere around this year's team is just, like the great teams we've had in the past, with just enjoying being around each other, enjoying talking on their runs, enjoy rooting and cheering for each other. And so she's brought, besides being, in this area, she was the top recruit that came out of this area. We were extremely lucky to get her. She's a top 5 recruit in the state of Kansas. So, she's coming over and she's doing, I don't want to sound like what she's doing is not great and awesome, but she's doing literally what we expected her to.
Sure.
She's coming in and contributing right away. She set the 3-mile record off on her first meet, and then she ran the top freshman time in the school's history this last week, running 18:38. And I was doing some research before I came down. As far as I could tell, that's a top 5 time in our school's history.
Wow.
Already in. And Patricia's right there with her. Patricia Limo has had a lot of experience coming from Washburn and Cloud County Community College, transferring here, and she was a top MIAA runner last year. So that's a very good 1-2 punch for us. Right?
Well, you mentioned the youth that you have and how good they're performing. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have Asher Brown on the show. We don't have time limitations. We have time limitations today, but he's coming on. And the next show, so he'll be on episode, I think, 73 of the Jetcast. He's a young runner that's been a leader on your men's team.
Yeah, Asher from day one has come in and been one of our top runners, and he was, I don't want to say beat, but someone finished ahead of him from our team.
Sure.
This last race, and you should have seen the difference in his attitude. I don't want to say his attitude, but you can see the determination in his eyes over the last 2 weeks. Asher holds our school record in the 4-mile and the 10K. It's a matter of time before he gets the 8K record. He ran 25:32 this weekend, which is good for number 3 all time. So he was only 13 seconds off of that time. Steve Shergett and Jacob Wallace are right there ahead of him, but he's determined to get that. And Kevin Chamalmal is right there with him. And if we can have two guys beat the school record in one race, I'll take it.
Yeah.
So when you have runners like that, it makes it easier to train when you're not doing it by yourself. And at the top of both men and women, there's a couple of them there to push each other daily.
Well, you mentioned the national stage that you kind of found yourself on at the Missouri Southern Stampede, just because of that being one of, in the, I guess to use a golf term, it's in the rota of the national championship sites for cross country. What's the expectation that you have here for the Chili Pepper Run coming up, I believe, down in Arkansas? It's 5 p.m. on Friday, September 30th, the next time that you guys are in action. What do you expect to see out of that event, and what's that course like?
That's something that we usually didn't go to, but with this year's teams being a little bit better than we've been in the past, we decided to do it. And it's just all about atmosphere. We want to create opportunities for kids to run at championship meet atmosphere. We could go to the Tabor meet with 7 teams and do whatever. And nothing against Tabor. Tabor actually has a really good women's team this year. But, we're going to go down and we're going to run against Arkansas and Texas Tech and Central Arkansas and some of the best teams in the country.
Well, I mean, so how do you, those are logos and schools that your kids are going to know.
Yeah.
How do you get them ready for that kind of an atmosphere?
You just have to preach what all coaches preach, and that's, do your game or run your race, The mile distance from the starting line to the first mile marker is the same for everyone. They might be running it through in 4:43, but your job is to do it in 4:53. So you have to understand, if you go with them, you probably can, but you're going to pay for that in mile 3, mile 4, mile 5. So it's about knowing our own race, but it also gives them the opportunity to run fast. And anytime you got a group of 10 guys running at a certain pace, it's going to be better than a guy here, a guy there, and kind of spaced out. Where if you can just go with a group or go with a group of ladies, it's going to be better. And at the end of the day, if Patricia and Britton and Nayeli and Lucy and Laura, those top 5, and Ashley, look up and they're standing next to a WSU kid or a Arkansas girl or an LSU girl or a Texas Tech, or we focus more on Emporia State and Fort Hays. But if they see those, hey, let's go. Let's beat them. And it's a big time atmosphere. And Arkansas has won, several national championships. So it's just a fast course, proven course, and it's a big meet atmosphere that our kids need to get used to if we're going to start competing on the conference level and regional level.
And obviously for you at the conference level, the MIAA championships coming up November 5th. How do you see this team getting positioned to do well? What do they need to do in this next, I guess you've got kind of a month of tune-up to get ready for the MIAA championships. What does each team, men and women, need to do to put themselves in position to contend there and then obviously contend into the postseason?
Well, it's just about staying healthy and continue to do the things we have to do as far as, running your miles, get your morning work in, doing the little things, stretching, staying hydrated, especially this time of year. And the biggest thing is getting some rest.
Sure.
These kids get up at 5:30 to get to practice by 6:15, and then when they're done with class, they're hungry. And we preach all the time, you may have to start doing your homework earlier than 8 p.m. Do it so that you can go to sleep, because if you don't go to bed till midnight, you're going to be in trouble and open yourself up. So doing some of the little things that we can, but the women have already beat 2 teams this last week that are in our conference that were picked ahead of us. So UCO and Emporia State, we beat both those teams, and 5 or 6 teams from the GAC. The men would have been 3rd in the GAC. All the MIAA teams there beat us, but Roger State is close. So we got to continue just to work on ourselves. John Wooden once said, the only way to make the team better is to make yourself better.
One runner at a time for the Newman Jets. Once again, the Chili Pepper Run coming up in Arkansas, 5 p.m. on Friday, September 30th. Thanks so much, Coach. Good luck and congratulations on last week's run.
Thank you.
We'll have Britton Kelly coming up next from right here in Wichita when we return on the Jetcast. Continuing here on episode 72 of the Jetcast as we talk with one of the young players on this Newman women's team, Britton Kelly, from right here in Wichita, one of the top recruits in Sedgwick County, and she is a Jet, a former Maize South Maverick, and she has set some records. Seems like you're setting records every single week. Britton, thank you so much for being on the show. Welcome to the Jetcast.
Thank you.
Well, for you, a 3-mile race record a few weeks ago at the Terry Masterson Twilight Classic, setting the record for as a freshman. How excited were you with that performance, and what do you think allowed you to run so well in that match?
Yeah, that was super great to just kick the season off with a fast time, and I felt pretty strong during it, and yeah.
What has been the biggest adjustment for you coming through from the high school level, obviously running in the AVCTL, to now competing at the collegiate level? Yeah,
it's been a pretty big change. I would say my workouts were pretty hard in high school, but I would say these are at a much higher level, but I've really enjoyed them and thought they've just put me at the next level for sure.
So when you think about yourself and the standard that you hold yourself to, are you at the point, how do you kind of, balance, obviously you want to get better every week, but it's probably, I don't know, maybe Coach Schepis has a different opinion. You're probably not going to set a record every single week that you race, but it seems like you're setting records every single week. So how do you kind of balance wanting to not over, pressure yourself, but obviously you're still competitive and want to improve?
Right. Yeah, so I try to just go into every race with a good mindset, and I don't try to put any standards on myself, but I just try to go into each race just trying to be better each time.
You were the best Jet finisher for the women at the Southern Stampede. What worked well for you this last race?
This last race, it was a huge meet, so competition helps me a lot. So I just think being able to, I also had another teammate, Patricia. She was able to stay with me almost the whole time, and just working off of each other helped a lot.
One thing that Coach Schepis talked about is you guys beating MIAA foes, and it had been the first time in a while that you guys had finished ahead of Emporia State. You also got Central Oklahoma. When you see those logos, those words, Emporia, Central Oklahoma, Washburn, the other MIAA schools out there and those ladies running next to you, how much of that is a motivating factor?
Yeah, that's a big motivating factor, just knowing that we haven't beaten them in a while, and now our team is able to compete against them and beat them.
How nice is it for you to be able to run here locally down in the Wichita area where you're born and raised?
Yeah, I have loved it. Just getting to have my family come to my meets and getting to see them a lot, and just still knowing the area and being comfortable has been a real help to adjusting to college life.
Now, Coach Schepis said that you've actually know someone a little bit better. I know that Coach Schepis said he's been watching your meets for a while, but a little relation on the coaching staff. What's that like?
Yeah, so my aunt, Dina, is the assistant coach, and that's just been a blast because we have a pretty tight relationship, and it's been so fun.
How did you get into running? How big of a part did she play in that?
So I started running in middle school for cross country, but I actually played soccer almost my whole life. So I've always just kind of ran, but then actually I didn't start running high school until my sophomore year, and that was just kind of the breaking moment when I was like, I think I want to do this. And yeah, so she would come to almost every race and just inspired me since she ran in college too, and it's been so fun having her.
Obviously, as one of the top recruits in the Wichita area, you likely had a lot of different schools who were looking at you and would have loved to have had you in their school colors. What made Navy and Red and Newman and staying right here in Wichita at a Catholic private university, what made that the right fit for you?
Schepis was a big deal. He just made me feel comfortable here, and I just loved the team aspect, and the school was just exactly what I wanted, and the smaller school and being close to home was just, yeah. Now,
all the nice things she's saying about Coach Schepis, we should inform everyone that he is just off camera watching. So if you want to be, you can be as honest as you can. What's it been like to be coached by Coach Schepis?
It's been so fun. He's kind of like a father figure, and he's so fun, but he also is able to push me to my best abilities.
So the Chili Pepper Run coming up, he talked a little bit about that in terms of the kind of teams that you're going to see there. Not going to be the teams that you're necessarily necessarily competing with. There's going to be SEC schools there, schools from the top of the top in terms of Power 5 conferences. How excited do you get? Certainly, you're not necessarily running against them, but when you get the opportunity to run against schools and ladies from the SEC and all these other, the Big 12 and all these other power conferences, what does that do for your motivation factor when you're out there on the course and representing a Division II school from Kansas in the MIAA?
Yeah, I think that it's really cool to be able to compete against them, just knowing that I could be at their level too, but then but still being at the Division II and knowing that I'm about the same level is pretty cool.
Final question for you. Obviously, MIAA championships, as we said, are coming up about the first weekend in November. How do you get yourself ready, and how do you, just from talking to you and the way you're running, it doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of intimidation factor coming in as a young racer. You've taken on the MIAA challenge pretty much head on, but how do you get yourself physically and mentally ready for the next step of having some success in the postseason?
Yeah, just staying mentally strong and positive through just even workouts or easy runs, and just staying positive throughout all of it and knowing that I can race my best during the regionals and things.
Another Jet from right here in Sedgwick County, a former Mays South Maverick, Britton Kelly. Once again, the Chili Pepper Run next up for the men and the women on Friday, September 30th down in Arkansas. Britton, good luck to you. Thanks so much for the time. Maria Stevens from women's soccer joins us next as we wrap up the Jetcast.
Where can you land the best Jet swag? The official online store of Newman University Athletics, NUJetSkier.com. The store features the greatest variety of Jets logo gear anywhere, from latest clothing styles and hats to Newman branded lawn chairs and office supplies and more. NUJetSkier.com is your place to purchase sports specific, alumni, parents, and hard to find Newman merchandise. Shop right now on your computer or phone, NUJetSkier.com, or click the Shop Now button at NewmanJets.com.
Wrapping up the Jetcast today as we go back to the pitch for women's soccer. Maria Stevens joins us as we're going to pretty much just stay entirely in Wichita on this week's show. A 5'3" defender from right here in the Air Capital, a former Wichita South Lady Titan, a 4-year player in this Newman Jets program. Maria, thank you so much for the time. How are you?
Thank you. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing okay. Open to MIAA play last weekend for you. A 1-0 loss to Rogers State, but it was amazing to look at the defensive statistics for you guys. Obviously, in the first matchup against Rogers State, you allowed about 30 or so shots. Cut that in half in the second matchup, allowed just 1 goal in, and even going from the first half to the second half, I think you guys allowed like 1 shot in the entire second half. So defensively, it seems like you guys are increasing your skill and certainly improving rapidly. How do you, as a veteran and a leader on the defensive half of the pitch for you, the Jets this year, how do you see your improvement individually and as a team going on that side of the ball?
I think individually this year is a lot different from the others. When I came in as a freshman, I was probably one of the only freshmen that played a lot, but I also was one of the only freshmen that was getting yelled at by other teammates. And so I felt like from then until now, I took more of that leadership position. So now since like half the team are younger girls, I'm one of the ones who's now taking that leadership role and trying to help them do the things that they need to do, which has been a little bit difficult because it's different than what I'm used to.
Sure.
But in all, it's better. It's helping me out, and it's helping me understand what I need to do more, and also helping us as a team get better.
So the young players, are you giving them the same yelling treatment that you got when you were a freshman?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They definitely know that I will yell at them, but it's all love.
Of course. Well, and you guys, in terms of the defense, I know the record's not where you guys want as a team, but you guys have allowed just 3 goals in your last 4 matches. You have a draw in there as well. What is it about the way that you guys have been playing in like the last 2 weeks that is setting you apart from how you started the season defensively?
Yeah. I think that we've been working a lot more at practice with defense because that's been one of the things in the beginning. We were getting scored on more than we are now. So I think that just practicing it and the repetition has been helping us, and also just learning exactly how to play defense, how we shift as a team. We've just gotten better in that back four because now we played more together. and we have a little bit of experience, as in when we first started, we didn't really know each other, kind of just new people jumping in together. So I think it's kind of the experience and also just doing it.
Well, you've been on an incredible journey here at Newman. Started in 2019. Obviously, you've had a coaching change. You had the coronavirus pandemic. You had a season that they took a season away from you that you didn't even get to play. So how do you kind of reflect here as you are in the middle of your senior season, kind of the arc that your journey has taken you here at Newman, playing in your hometown?
Yeah, I think this whole thing has just been a learning experience for me. Just part of that being the leadership role, and also just taking the time and actually being here, being present, and appreciating my time here at Newman, because even with the COVID year, it kind of sucked not playing. It was really bad. But then I'm like reminiscing on how quickly all these years went by, and it's over before you know it. So it's really just taking it all in.
Well, you're only going to get 1 year with Coach Grunsel, but I thought that it was interesting, that he chose a senior. Sometimes when a new coach comes in, players want something, coaches want something else. You were recruited by a coach. Maybe that's not the kind of system. Doesn't necessarily mean that, he's too good of a coach to you, or you're, not a good enough player to play in a system. Sometimes not every coach and every player are meant to fit together. But Coach Grunsel, when I asked him for somebody to come on the show, he gave your name without hesitation. What's it been like playing for Coach Grunsel in this 1 year you're going to get to spend with him?
It's been different. I had Dylan as a assistant coach my freshman year here.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so he was. Yeah. So he wasn't. This wasn't a totally new thing.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
and
right.
I also played against him in high school, so I know of him for sure. But it's been different because he's been the rival team for me. I didn't like him back then. Now I'm kind of forced to like him.
What school was he at?
East High.
Okay, so South and East. Is that South? What do you think is the biggest rivalry for South?
Ooh. I don't know.
I always thought it was like, from talking to people, and I got so many different answers. It's a little bit different than, like you kind of know when I thought it was North.
North was a good rival, yes.
I thought, people said, Civil War, you got to be ready for North and South. But, it's a little different when you've got, than like Goddard and Eisenhower or Capon and Bishop Carroll. But it was the north side.
I think North was a good rival.
I mean, I know that all of you, all of the schools in the City League, there's not a team that you're like, well, but we don't have to worry about them. You want to beat everybody, don't you?
Yep.
What's it been like for you to be able to play your soccer here in your hometown?
It's been nice. My family gets to come out to the games. I don't really have any family anywhere else. They all live here and they're close by, so it's nice being able to have them come out and watch. And I like being here.
Being a leader on this team, you mentioned how that's been a little bit of a difficult transition for you, just because it's not something that you've been asked to do on other teams. What do you think has allowed you to transition to that role where you are okay getting on some of those younger players? And, obviously, maybe your leadership isn't going to bear fruit this season, but, you could be certainly, and based on the improvement that you guys have had, could certainly be laying the foundation for these freshmen to start turning things around next season. What has allowed you personally to kind of step up into that bigger role?
Yeah, I think it's the team in general. The team bonds really well this year. We don't take anything offensively. We just get in, roll with it. Even like the freshmen, if I do get onto them, they'll come to me and be like, thanks, because I was not on it today. So I think just having that, just get in and roll with it. Yeah, I might be doing bad, so I'll just take the advice and keep it pushing. Now,
just because you play on the defense doesn't mean that you don't try to look for your own shot every once in a while. And you've got a couple of goals this season. How do you kind of balance, obviously, if you're, pressing too far forward and an easy goal goes in, I'm guessing Coach Grunsel's not going to be happy. But at the same time, you've shown that you can make plays on offense. So how do you kind of balance that?
For me, I didn't play defense always. I used to play up, but then I kind of moved down the line. So I started midfield, went outside back, and then now I'm at center back. But I feel like playing outside back kind of gave me that kind of judgment on when to go and when not to go, because you kind of have that space, but as a defender, you only take those chances when you know that someone can cover you. So if I have people back covering me, then I'll take off. But I just make sure I pick and choose my battles wisely.
Sure. Well, and you mentioned you've played a lot of different positions. You were all MIAA second team last year playing defensively, so obviously you're excellent at that. What's your favorite position?
My favorite position is probably midfield.
Midfield? So if Coach Grunsel, maybe on senior night, maybe we can get her up to midfield. We'll see. Missouri Southern is coming up on Friday, 6 o'clock, Central Missouri on Sunday. Jets are on the road this week for MIAA action. What's it going to take to get a win against the Lions? Obviously, Central Missouri is going to be a challenge on Sunday as well, but Missouri Southern on Friday, what are the things that you've been hearing about them and the Lions, and how do you get set to upset them on their home pitch?
I think mainly what we need to do as a team is play as a team, given that we are a lot of new players. So I think that finally finding that grit and that togetherness will help us out a lot. Missouri's a really good team, being here 4 years, and they have quick players. They're big, fast, strong, so we need to be big, faster, and stronger at this point. But yeah, just playing as a team and communicating is what we've been needing to do this whole time. So we can definitely get it.
Yet another Wichita product, former Lady Titan here on the show from Wichita South, Maria Stevens. Once again, Missouri Southern on Friday, 6 p.m. is the next match. You can watch those matches on the miaanetwork.com/Newman, or you could just come out in person. Jets are going to be back at home on Friday, September 30th, to take on the Tigers of Fort Hays State right here at Wilkins on campus, right here in Wichita, Kansas. So we'd love to have you out at the pitch for that one. Maria, good luck this weekend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be back next week on the show with another Jetcast. Once again, Asher Brown joining us next week from men's cross country. We'll see who else we can get in here as well. So until next time, Blake Cripps saying, go Jets.